Hello, fellow enthusiasts. And this is another review. And this is a review about a coaster named X2 at Six Flags Magic Mountain in Los Angeles, California. This is what you would call a fourth dimension coaster where the seats spin while the ride is going on. Um, I was fortunate enough to ride this for the first time in 2005 when my parents brought me to LA and they stopped by Magic Mountain. That was such a dream come true. I had waited my whole childhood to ride this. Um, didn't get to ride it again until 2019, and then the last couple years I've been able to ride it every year. This is the craziest, most violent coaster in the country for me. It's not really close. Um, this ride is feels like a car accident. That's the best way I can describe it. It takes no prisoners. I feel bad for the people that ride it for the first time because there's a lot of general public that ride it and don't realize the seats rotate. So hearing their reaction is sad but funny. Um, but how the ride starts is the seats tilt backwards. You got two sides to the station. They pick which side you go on. You leave the station on your back. You have and then you go up the hill backwards. The lift hill is I think it's about 175 feet. You have a beautiful view of the Santa Clarita Valley because this ride sits on a hill, so it seems a lot higher than it really is. Goliath is a good deal taller than this, and you're looking down on Goliath from the top of the hill because of the elevation. And then I think you're looking down on everything but Superman, so it's a gorgeous view of the park and the mountains out in the distance. Very slow lift hill, but then after that peaceful journey comes when all hell breaks loose. So you flip over backwards while you go down this drop. It is very out of control. Like it feels like a car accident. It's really hard to put into words. Like you take the first drop while you're flipping over backwards and you land on your back. Like it is like being in a car and then you just get knocked off tumbling down a mountain. Like like with this ride, you really can't fight it. It's hard to like be afraid of this ride. I know a lot of enthusiasts are afraid of it, but for me, I don't get afraid of it even when I was a kid because this ride, you just know it is what it is. You just have to accept it and let it happen. Like you're going to do what this ride wants to do, whether you like it or not, whether you're ready for it or not. You're going to let it, you're going to go through it. And it just, it is what it is. Like, even now when I ride it, like, every time I get to the top of that hill and I'm getting ready to go down, I just think to myself, how am I going to get through this? Like, I'm not ready to flip over so awkwardly, but it just happens. Like, it's the most intense first drop I've ever experienced. And after that first drop comes, Raven turn. This Raven turn, you get a lot of hang time. The track is above you. That's another weird sensation. The track is above you, and then you just you get so much hang time on. I don't know how tall this is. I think it's 170. And then after that Raven turn, you go up an airtime hill where you do a full somersault. Like the seats are flipping, like you're flipping over while you're going up the airtime hill, and you get airtime at the same time. So the first three elements of this ride are just so good. Like each one of them alone is better than an entire coaster. Like, and the ride is kind of rough at the same time, and that kind of adds to the experience. Like this ride just feels so unhinged. Alan Schilke is the designer for this. That man is just such a wizard for coming up with this thing. Um, I think it's the most intense coaster in the country, bar none, and I really don't think it's close. Some people think I'm intimidated 305 at Kingston Man or Pantherian, but I think this is way harder on my body than that ride. Um, so after that, airtime hill, you go through a turn. This is probably the only calm part of the ride, and your body needs it after taking a beating. And then it gets crazy again because you go through what is called a fly to lie, where you flip over going forwards, and then you flip over and land on your back going backwards. And so that part of the ride is just really disorienting. It's hard to describe because it just feels so awkward. And then what I think is the most uncomfortable part of the ride is there's a moment, there's a small Raven turn at the end of the ride, and I think that part of the ride is very jarring. Like there's a very strong jolt, and it hurts. Like it doesn't really matter where you sit. You have to brace yourself for that moment because it feels so uncomfortable, and it's just this weird jolt. I feel like they're gonna have to reprofile that at a certain point because I think somebody's gonna get a concussion on that. Um, as far as the best seat, if you're afraid of this, I would not sit in the back row because these are very heavy, long trains. So if you sit in the back, when you sit in the back row, you are just violently yanked through this whole ride. Like everything just feels like a blur. And because these trains are so long, you get way more of a pull. I think in the front row is a little bit easier to deal with. It's still crazy. It's still ridiculous. Any row you sit, you're in for a beatdown. So, I just think another thing about this ride, in my opinion, it doesn't look really intimidating. Like if you didn't know that the seats rotated, I would you wouldn't think it was that big of a deal because it's not that tall, really. And it doesn't have that dominating, imposing presence like a Fury 325 or Millennium Force or, even a Diamondback or, a Goliath in the same park. Like, I think a lot of GP, they don't know that the seats spin and then they get on it and they're like, what in the world was that? But, this ride is just such an incredible, experience. It's been so great to ride it. I had to wait 14 years after my childhood experience on it before I could ride it again in 2019. And I got to ride it with the music. The music was incredible. But once you leave that lift hill, it's you don't even care about the music anymore. I think the most underrated effect is the fire. Like the fire is incredible, especially at night, because you can really feel it, and it just adds such a cool dimension. I think the music is gone for good because from my last trip in 2025 in December, the speakers were removed. And that doesn't matter. As long as the thing is open, I don't care. This thing is worth, like, I live in Ohio, and this thing is worth a flight from Ohio by itself. And, it's just one of those rides, like, you book a hotel just for this alone. And some of this footage in my last trip in 25 in December, I got to ride it in the fog. I don't know where this fog came from. It just kind of came out of nowhere where I was in line. And I didn't notice it until I got to the front of the line. And I was like, what is this? And then going up the lift hill, I couldn't see anything. It was just this white blanket, and then because this is Holiday Inn Park, all you could see was some of the lights, but I really couldn't see anything. And then, as you can imagine, the ride was just ridiculous. That was the first time I'd ever ridden anything in fog. Like, and I pray I get that again. Like, I will hope at Cedar Point I get to ride something like Millennium Force in the fog. Um, But this ride is just, it's a 10 out of 10. It's such gave it's so many great memories on this ride. Like this was my college graduation gift in 2019 and my 30th birthday uh, gift in 2022. I got to go to Magic Mountain for 5 days. Everything was running. Wonder Woman had just opened. Even Superman was running, and that was a special moment. This was my last moment of my 20s was a night ride on X2, and that was just such a special moment. You know, um, Capacity for this thing is pretty slow. Unfortunately, they've been on one train for a while. I don't know when that's gonna change, but honestly, your body needs a break. I don't think this is something you're gonna marathon because it's just way too hard on the body. Like it is an incredibly taxing ride, but it's still so damn good. Um, I hear that they're working on hopefully having two trains because right now, unfortunately, you can't use a fast lane with it. So if you want to ride this, you want to get to it in the morning. Like you want to get to it as quickly as possible in the morning because this thing, I don't know why, but the GP is afraid of I-305 or Pantherian, but they love this thing, even though in my opinion it's way more intense. But anywho, this is a 10 out of 10 for me. One of my all-time favorites. I hope to go ride it again for my birthday again this coming August. Because I'm also going for the new Fast and the Furious. Um, like I said, can't wait to ride this again. Um, hopefully, they do whatever they can to keep it because I'd hate to lose this. But anywho, thanks for listening to me and thanks for watching the video. Have a great night.